The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty main street of Cedar Ridge, Wyoming territory, but Anna Whitmore barely noticed. She stood on the porch of her family's boarding house, her fingers tight around a worn carpet bag that held all she owned. The year was 1873, and at 24, she was about to be sent away from the only home she had left. "Best you wait inside," her sister-in-law Martha said from the doorway. Her voice wasn't cruel, but distant, like she couldn't bear to look too closely. "The wagon won't be here for another hour." Anna didn't move. She had grown used to that tone, how people spoke to her now as if she were fragile or cursed. 3 years of marriage to Thomas Whitmore had ended with his death from consumption, leaving her with nothing but whispers that followed her everywhere. Barren. Childless. Cursed. The door creaked again, and her brother Samuel stepped out, his face heavy with guilt. "Anna," he began, clearing his throat. "You understand this is for the best. Martha's expecting again, and with 4 little ones already." "I understand perfectly," she said quietly, her voice calm but hollow. She understood too well. A woman who couldn't bear children had no real place in a world where families meant survival. Samuel's charity had run dry. "Monroe's a decent man," Samuel went on. "Got a good spread 20 miles west of here, lost his wife and boy to the fever 5 years back. He needs someone to keep house." Anna almost laughed. Jack Monroe. She'd heard his name whispered around the saloon when men thought their wives weren't listening. A man who lived like a ghost, working his land in silence, speaking to no one. The church ladies had decided she'd make the perfect companion for him. "The church arranged it proper," Martha added, coming out beside Samuel. "Sent word through Reverend Phillips. Mr. Monroe agreed to the arrangement." Arrangement, not marriage, not partnership. Just a polite way to say she was being given away. Down the street, 2 women whispered near the Mercantile. When they caught Anna watching, they looked away too quickly. She knew what they were thinking. "Send the barren woman to the hermit cowboy. 2 misfits canceling each other out." "He doesn't know, does he?" Anna asked quietly. "About my condition?" Samuel's face stiffened. "Wasn't relevant. Man needs help. You need a home." Simple as that. But it wasn't simple, and they all knew it. It was a joke hidden beneath the words of Christian charity, a way to rid themselves of the problem she'd become. The sound of wagon wheels broke the silence. Old Pete Sullivan pulled up, his hat low against the sun. "Morning, Miss Anna," he said, but his eyes didn't quite meet hers. Samuel loaded her single trunk onto the wagon bed, while half the town pretended not to watch. The blacksmith paused mid-swing. The saloon girls leaned out their dusty windows. Even the preacher stood on the church steps, pretending to sweep dust that didn't need sweeping. Everyone had come to see her leave. "Take care of yourself," Martha said, her arms folded tight. "You're right," Anna replied softly. "No point in pretending otherwise." She climbed onto the wagon seat, her back straight despite the weight of humiliation pressing down. As they rolled away, she heard a boy's voice behind her. "Ma, why's Miss Anna leaving?" "She's going where she belongs," came the answer. The words followed her like a curse. Where she belonged. The town faded behind her, swallowed by the vast, empty prairie. Pete tried to make conversation once, but Anna barely heard him. Her mind was miles ahead, already picturing the lonely ranch, the stranger who waited there, and the silence that would fill the space between them. When the first storm clouds gathered, Pete muttered, "Looks like trouble brewing." Anna followed his gaze to the dark horizon. "Let it come," she said. "One more storm won't make much difference." The storm hit before they reached the turnoff, soaking them both. Mud clung to her skirts, cold rain stung her cheeks, but she didn't flinch. By the time they stopped at a sagging wooden gate, the sun was sinking, and the air smelled of wet earth. "This is as far as I go," Pete said. "Ranch house is about a mile up that track." Anna climbed down, boots squelching in the mud. Her dress was ruined, her hair plastered to her face. She looked every bit the unwanted woman being delivered to her new exile. "You sure about this?" Pete asked softly. "I can tell folks you changed your mind." "I have no one east of here," she said. "This is where I'm meant to be." He nodded once and turned the team around. Anna watched the wagon roll away, the last link to her old life disappearing into the rain. Then she turned toward the lonely path ahead. The walk was long and cold. Grass brushed her skirts, tall and golden against the darkening sky. When she finally saw the ranch house rise from the prairie, her heart clenched. It looked half dead. A weathered building with missing boards, a barn door hanging loose, windows staring blankly toward nothing. Before she could knock, the front door opened. A man filled the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by the dying light. His eyes were gray, hard as winter steel. "You're the woman from town," he said, his voice low and flat. "Anna Whitmore," she managed, lifting her chin. He studied her, rain dripping from her hair to the porch boards. "You're late. I expected you hours ago. Where's your trunk?" "At the gate. It was too heavy to carry." Without another word, he strode past her, vanishing into the rain. Minutes later, he returned. Her trunk balanced on one shoulder as if it weighed nothing. "Best get inside," he said quietly. "Storm's not done yet." The house was bare but clean. A small fire crackled in the hearth. The air smelled of dust and ash. "Rooms down the hall. Last door on the right," he said, still not looking at her. "It was my wife's sewing room. Cleared it out yesterday." "Thank you," she said, clutching her carpet bag. He nodded once. "Rest. Tomorrow's soon enough to figure the rest." When he left, Anna stood alone in the quiet house, listening to the storm's low growl. She'd been sent here as a joke, a broken woman for a broken man. But as she touched the rough wood of the walls, something inside her steadied. They'd sent her away in shame. But storms had a way of changing things. And out here in this wide, lonely land, Anna Whitmore was about to learn that the West had its own ideas about worth and about what it meant to belong. The morning after the storm dawned clear and cold, the prairie stretching endless and washed clean by rain. Anna woke to the smell of coffee and wood smoke drifting down the narrow hallway. She dressed quickly and followed the sound into the kitchen. Jack Monroe stood at the stove, his back to her, shoulders broad beneath a faded work shirt. He poured 2 cups of coffee and set one on the rough table without a word. "Morning," she said, uncertain. He nodded. "Morning. Bread's in the tin if you're hungry." The silence between them was heavy but not cruel. Anna ate quietly, aware of his every movement, efficient, restrained, a man who had built a life around routine. When she finished, he turned from the stove. "We need to be clear about things," he said. "I agreed to this arrangement because Reverend Phillips insisted. I'm not looking for a wife, just someone to keep house and mind her own business." "I understand," Anna replied, keeping her voice steady. "Do you?" His gray eyes met hers, cool and unreadable. "This isn't town life. Nearest neighbor's 8 miles east. You'll see no one but me most days. Can you live with that?" "I've been alone in a room full of people, Mr. Monroe," she said. "I think I can manage real solitude." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, but it vanished just as quickly. "Fine," he said. "I rise before dawn. Work till dark. Breakfast at 5. Dinner at noon. Supper when the work's done. Laundry on Mondays. Town trip first Saturday of the month. You'll have egg money if the hens start laying again." She nodded. "Understood." He hesitated, as if weighing something unsaid, then added quietly, "That door at the end of the hall stays closed. My wife and son died in that room. Fever. 5 years back." Anna's heart ached at the rawness in his voice. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He didn't respond, only picked up his hat and headed outside. The door closed behind him, leaving her alone in the small kitchen, the only sound the ticking of the old clock on the mantel. For a long moment, Anna stood there, staring at the door that led to his ghosts. Then she rolled up her sleeves and got to work. The house, though tidy, bore the marks of long neglect. Dust clung to corners, windows filmed over, and the hearth was dull with soot. Anna scrubbed, mended, polished, losing herself in the rhythm of work. It was something she understood, something she could control. By noon, sunlight poured through clean windows, casting the bare room in new warmth. Jack returned from the fields, surprised to find the table set with bread, beans, and coffee. "You didn't have to do all this," he said, standing in the doorway. "I know," she replied simply, "but I wanted to." He ate without comment, but she caught him glancing around the room more than once, as if seeing his home for the first time in years. Days turned into weeks. The silence between them softened, replaced by quiet understanding. Anna rose before dawn, baking biscuits while Jack saddled his horse. She mended fences with him, planted a new garden, coaxed the old hens into laying again. Bit by bit, the lifeless ranch began to breathe again. One evening, she found the fence around the garden repaired. Fresh posts, wire stretched tight. Jack had done it during the night without saying a word. The next day, she returned the favor by organizing his cluttered barn, lining up tools neatly on the wall. Neither spoke of these small kindnesses, but they hung between them like unspoken promises. Then came the first snow. Jack was out early, moving cattle to the south pasture. Anna bundled in every coat she owned and followed with warm coffee and biscuits. She found him knee-deep in snow, guiding a stubborn steer through the gate. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "And you shouldn't skip meals," she answered, holding out the coffee. He hesitated, then took it. Steam rose between them, mingling with their breath. "You're stubborn," he muttered. "I've been called worse." Quote, for the first time since she'd arrived, he almost smiled. That night, when the blizzard hit full force, they huddled in the main room near the fire. Wind screamed through the chinks in the walls, shaking the shutters. Jack laid out 2 bedrolls by the hearth. "No sense freezing in separate rooms," he said gruffly. Anna nodded, spreading her blanket on the opposite side of the fire. But as the storm howled outside, they talked for the first time. Not as strangers, but as 2 souls who had both lost too much. Jack spoke of Missouri, of coming west with dreams and losing everything to the fever. Anna told him about her husband, the quiet despair of realizing she could never bear children, and the gossip that had chased her out of town. When she finished, he said softly, "That don't make you less of a woman. My Sarah lost 2 before Tim came along. Broke her near in half each time. Having children or not, it don't measure a person's worth." Anna felt tears sting her eyes. It was the first time anyone had said that to her. "What makes a person whole, then?" she asked. Jack stared into the fire. "Maybe just doing the work that needs doing. Having someone to share the load with." The wind eased by morning, leaving the world wrapped in snow and silence. Jack handed her coffee, their fingers brushing briefly. Neither spoke of it, but the touch lingered in her thoughts all day. From that morning forward, something shifted. They worked side by side, repaired what was broken, and began to fill the silence with small words. Simple things, but enough. Then one night, just as another storm rolled in, 3 gunshots cracked through the wind. Jack was on his feet in seconds, rifle in hand. "That's a distress signal," he said. Anna grabbed the shotgun from above the mantel. "You're not going alone." He opened his mouth to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. "Fine. Stay close." Snow slashed their faces as they pushed through the dark. They found 4 figures huddled by the fence line. 2 men, 2 women, 1 injured. Travelers lost in the storm. Without hesitation, Anna moved to help. "Bring them in, quickly." Quote, they half-carried, half-dragged the strangers back to the house. Anna took command, boiling water, binding a broken arm, stripping off wet clothes, wrapping the shivering women in blankets. Jack worked beside her, silent but steady. By night's end, the strangers were fed and safe, the fire blazing bright. The older man, Frank Morrison, clasped Jack's hand. "You too saved our lives." Anna looked at Jack across the firelight. He didn't answer, but she saw it then. The change in him, the man who'd lived like a ghost, was coming back to life. And as she watched him with those gray eyes softening for the first time, Anna realized something she hadn't dared before. Maybe this place wasn't her punishment after all. Maybe, against all odds, it was the beginning of something else entirely. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the ranch buried in white silence. The travelers, Frank Morrison, his injured brother Ben, and their wives, Mary and Catherine, were alive because of Jack and Anna. The fire still burned low on the hearth, and the smell of coffee filled the room. Mary smiled weakly from her pallet near the fire. "We can't thank you enough. You saved us." Anna shook her head. "You'd have done the same for us." But she knew that wasn't true. Few people would have braved a blizzard for strangers. Jack hadn't hesitated once, and she had followed without question. Somewhere between the storm and the firelight, something had changed between them, something she couldn't yet name. That afternoon, as the men worked to clear snow from the barn roof, Anna tended to Ben's arm, wrapping it tighter. Frank watched her closely. "You and your husband make a fine team," he said. Anna glanced up, startled. "We're not." Jack entered just then, brushing snow from his coat. Storm's easing. Cattle made it through. He paused, catching the tail end of Frank's words. "We do all right," he said simply, setting his rifle by the door. That night, when the travelers were asleep, Jack and Anna sat together near the fire, exhaustion softening their guard. "You did good tonight," he said quietly. Most women would have panicked. Quote, "I didn't have time to," she replied with a faint smile. He studied her face, the firelight painting her in gold and shadow. "You belong here, you know," he said finally. The words hit harder than he knew. For the first time in years, she felt like maybe she did. But peace in the West never lasted long. 3 days later, as the Morrison party prepared to leave, a stranger appeared, riding out of the snow on a fine horse, his coat too clean, his eyes too sharp. He introduced himself as Cole Anderson, claiming he'd been searching for the travelers. Something in his smile made Anna's skin prickle. They let him inside, offered warmth and food, but she noticed the way his gaze moved, counting people, measuring strength. He asked too many questions about the ranch, about their supplies, about whether they had neighbors nearby. When he stepped outside to check his horse, Anna whispered to Jack, "He's not what he says he is." "I know," Jack said. "I've heard that name before." That night, no one slept much. Anna kept the shotgun near, her finger never far from the trigger. But by dawn, Anderson was gone, riding east, leaving only his tracks in the snow. "He'll be back," Jack muttered. "He'll find more than he expects," Anna said. The Morrisons left that morning, promising to send word if they saw trouble. The house felt quieter afterward, emptier but somehow fuller, too. Jack moved around the kitchen, restless. Strange how people come through your life just when you need reminding what matters. "Like us?" Anna asked softly. He met her eyes. "Yeah, like us." Winter thawed slowly into spring, snow melted from the high ridges, and wildflowers began to push through the earth. Life returned to the land, and with it something gentler between them. They worked together without speaking much, but everything about their days felt different, lighter. Then, one morning, a knock came at the door. A young woman stood on the porch, barely more than 20, her face pale and drawn, a bundle clutched against her chest. "Please," she whispered, swaying on her feet. "Help me." Anna caught her before she fell. The bundle stirred. A baby, its cry thin and desperate. Jack rushed in from the barn. "Good Lord," he breathed. "Blankets," Anna ordered. "Quickly." They laid the woman by the fire. She was burning with fever, her breath shallow. Between coughs, she whispered her name, Rose Sullivan, and that she'd come from Kansas looking for the baby's father, a miner who died before she arrived. She had no one left, nowhere to go. 3 days later, Rose died quietly before dawn, leaving behind a small boy and the echo of a promise. Anna buried her beneath the cottonwood hill and stood in silence beside Jack as the wind tugged at her skirts. She held the baby close. "She wanted him cared for," Anna said softly. "I promised her I would." Jack nodded slowly. "Then we will." He didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate. He just accepted it as fact. Weeks passed, and the baby, William, filled the house with new life. His tiny cries became part of their days and nights. Anna learned how to rock him to sleep, how to soothe him with a song she barely remembered from childhood. Jack built a cradle out of pine and started coming in earlier from the fields. Sometimes, Anna caught him holding William in one arm, talking softly to him about horses and fences, the kind of things fathers talk about. The house that had once been silent was now full of small sounds, the creak of floorboards, the coo of a child, and the laughter Anna hadn't realized she was still capable of. One day, as she stood by the fire feeding the baby, Jack looked up from sharpening his knife. "You look natural with him," he said. "I never thought I'd hear that," Anna murmured. "Maybe life had other plans," Jack said. "Sarah used to tell me God's timing isn't ours." "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. "Raising another man's child, with a woman you barely know?" Jack walked over and laid his rough hand gently on the baby's head. "Told you before, Anna. Having children or not doesn't make a person whole, but loving them does. This boy needs us. And maybe we need him too." The words broke something open in her heart. Months later, they rode into town to sign the adoption papers. The judge smiled kindly as he stamped the document. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Monroe. You've made yourselves a family." Mrs. Monroe. The words felt strange but good. The gossip in Cedar Ridge started again, of course. Whispers followed them through the Mercantile and down Main Street. A baby, out of nowhere. Convenient, isn't it? But Jack stood tall beside her, his arm firm around her shoulders. "Let them talk," he told her. "They talked when you came. They'll talk when we're gone. But they don't get to decide what's real." And he was right. By summer, the ranch was alive again. Flowers bloomed along the porch, the garden flourished, and William's laughter filled every corner. He was crawling by harvest time, pulling himself up on the furniture, curious and fearless like his father in spirit if not in blood. One evening, as the sun sank low and painted the prairie gold, Jack came up behind Anna, resting his hands on her shoulders. "You ever think about how it started?" he asked. "I try not to," she said softly. "They sent me here as a joke." He turned her to face him. "Then the joke's on them." Quote, "That night he asked her to marry him properly, not for convenience, not for duty, but for love. 2 weeks later, under the same cottonwood where Rose was buried, they spoke their vows again before the townsfolk who once pitied them. Anna wore a simple blue dress. William clapped his small hands, delighted by the cheers. Jack kissed her softly and whispered, "Looks like the barren woman came home with more than they ever imagined." Years later, folks in Cedar Ridge still talked about it. The woman they'd cast out as a joke who returned with a child, a husband's love, and a home full of laughter. They said the West had a way of breaking people, but sometimes it remade them instead. And as the sun dipped behind the hills, Anna Whitmore Monroe sat on her porch, her son in her lap, her husband beside her, and thought that maybe, just maybe, every cruel beginning could still find a beautiful ending.